Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy here, the Insane Game Freak. Now, for those of you who know, I like One Piece, right? Well, One Piece is a show about pirates. And pirates steal, lie, and cheat. And today's video is about pirates. It's about one particular pirate who just so happens to be a part of the most dangerous crew you've ever seen in your life. So today, my dear viewers, we are going to talk about the one, the only God of the Straw Hat Pirates, and how I hate what they did to him in Dressrosa. Intro start.
I tire of this troublesome life. Out of the bag attack!
So, One Piece, Straw Hats, Usopp. So Usopp has been one of my favorite characters throughout the series. He's not my personal favorite Straw Hat, but I like him. I like him a lot. And throughout the series, he went through a very interesting but smooth transition from kind of a lying kid messing around with kids even younger than him in his village to a god amongst men, the sniper for one of the most dangerous crews in the world. And I would say for the majority of the story, I absolutely love his character development and triumphs and trials because he goes through it. For those who don't realize, Usopp's main character progression throughout the series of One Piece is that in the beginning, he very much represents the everyman. Now, unfortunately, because of anime logic, they kind of have to stretch how everyman he is throughout the course of the series. But for the most part, he's meant to represent a normal person in these crazy events. And I think he handles it well, even down to his insecurity and inferiority complex that pops up around Water 7 and CP9. The man is struggling. He's going through it. And when you keep messing up, you start to lash out and you start to make mistakes and you start to do things like challenge your captain that you've openly said can become king of the pirates to a duel over a boat and somehow thought you were going to win that fight. You knew you couldn't beat him! But we respect the effort. We respect the effort. We respect it. We respect the effort. This man's coping skills were so bad he had to create an alternate persona just to justify him coming back and helping. And we fuck with that persona. We kind of miss it too. Like Soda King, real quick, put the mask. Put the mask. Put the mask. They put the mask. No one cared who he was until he put on the mask. Anyways, that's not really my point. The point is, I've enjoyed Usopp through the majority of the series, all the way from episode 1 until we hit about, I don't know, probably say around the 700s, 800s, where they thought it was smart, and it wasn't. It absolutely wasn't. To put this man in an arc that I absolutely can't stand. Just to give full context, I don't like Dressrosa in its entirety. It has a lot of cool things in it, but it is by far my least favorite arc. But I don't want to go through the arc in its entirety because it takes a lot of time and effort. And I'm going to be 100% real with you. That could be a whole 3-hour video in itself, okay? So I'm only going to focus on the main man, okay? But they put him in Dressrosa. And Dressrosa, I don't know what Oda does, but Oda looked at Usopp and said, I think we can do something interesting with him. And I look back at him and said, okay, cool, bet. You've been pretty consistent about his development so far. This can't possibly go left, right? 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 It didn't go left. It went like up and then down and then to the back. And then someone pulled out a 12 gauge and shot it. Like it was bad, all right? It was bad. But let's try to discuss what went wrong and what the problem is. So for me to properly address Usopp and Dressrosa, I kind of have to address Usopp as a whole and why I like him so much. That way I can explain to you what Dressrosa gets wrong. And I'll kind of do a brief synopsis throughout the story to kind of show what it is. So I've already talked about him being an everyman, which is true. And he has key moments throughout the course of the series that help him grow and change in various ways, right? In East Blue, I think his first big moment, other than his introduction arc, comes in the form of his fight with Chew. Remember Chew? That blue fishman that shot water out of his mouth that no one ever talks about because everyone was too busy freaking out over the fact that Zoro fought an octopus, even having that big ass scar on his chest that hadn't healed from Mihawk, which by the way is on his chest for the rest of the series. Or when Sanji's first introduction fight as a Straw Hat member, he dog walked the shit out of Kurobi as soon as they got on land. People talk about those things, or even Luffy beating the living snot out of Arlong, right? Those things are talked about all day and every day. It's fine, but people don't understand that as a character building moment, Usopp versus Chew is very important. Remember, the main core of that fight to me that makes it so impactful isn't because it was the coolest fight or the most creative fight, even the most strategic fight. It was a fight for him to fight against not only Chew, but himself. Remember how that fight starts. He accidentally instigates against Chew. He chases him off into the middle of nowhere. And Usopp decides to make a strategic decision and pretend to play dead. Which means he could avoid the confrontation entirely. And he could still do the job of distracting a fishman. And he can come back and be like, hey Nami, I tried my best. The enemy kind of was a pain in the ass. But you know, at least that he wasn't around to interrupt you guys, right? And then he started being slowly reminded of all the coolness of the Straw Hats and the people he cared about back home and Kaya and the kids, and came to the realization, I can't do this, man. I can't just BS my way through this. That's why he has that whole speech, his monologue in the back where he's like, when I left home, I left everything. Peace, tranquility, safety. The reason why the Straw Hats are able to laugh so much is because every time they go out into the field, they're putting everything on the line. How can he call himself a Straw Hat or their friends if he isn't willing to do the same thing? Which is when he's, you know, he instigates and lets Chew know that he's perfectly fine. Come get some, and he runs over and Chew's about to bust him the fuck out, and he's like, and it essentially led into a moment where he had to man up and say, look, if I want this, then I have to get all of it. Everything, the good and the bad that comes with it. So I'm gonna do my best and give it my best shot. Lets it go, boom, and then knock, knock. Fishman ain't going out on no basic explosives, bitch. Yank, and lays him out. He's out. He sleep. He got shook. Which is a very interesting and important moment. That just because he now has the nerve to instigate the fight and to follow through with the fight doesn't mean that he's gonna automatically win. You still gotta know what the fuck you're doing. So he gets decked, he gets laid out, and he's like, bro, you should have just stayed dead. And he's like, I don't like this, but I'm gonna do it the way I gotta do it, because I'm not strong like Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji. I got my own way of fighting, that's what I'm gonna do. And he proceeds to go through the fight in his own way. Hits him in the hand, hits him in the kneecaps with the dang hammer. Does the classic rubber band of doom. By the way, bring that back, Usopp. I missed that move. Some of y'all don't respect the classics. Rubber band of doom is a classic. It's the greatest hits album. Come on, yo. And then even then, runs off and hides, then throws a ball of alcohol on him, and then breaks it open so it splashes over his body. He's even doing like a monologue during getting shot at in the latter half of the fight where he's like, oh crap, why did I put myself through this? But it's okay. If I'm gonna do this, I'm a real pirate now, and I won't stop. I'm gonna be a real pirate, I promise. My lying days are over. And they weren't, but he was at least going on a path of self-redemption and reflection and bettering himself. And he finishes the fight. He doesn't finish it like as nicely as Zoro does with a crazy finishing move, or Sanji, or Luffy. He gets a move off and he smacks him and he knocks him into the water after setting him on fire. And then what happens? Shu gets up because you just took a fisherman who was on fire and put him in a lake that doused the fire. So yeah, and the hammer wasn't that hard. So what happens right after that? Usopp hammer, Usopp hammer, Usopp hammer, Usopp hammer, Usopp hammer. Rubber band of doom, Usopp hammer, Usopp hammer, Usopp hammer, Usopp hammer, Usopp hammer. And then he's sitting there and goes, yeah, I won. I didn't give up. Yeah. It's not a clean win. It's not even a nice win, but it's a win. He's like, I did it. And then he chokes on water. That's Usopp's character. He's going to stumble the whole way through. But when he's needed, he will get it done. And that's kind of how he is throughout the course of the story. He's not perfect and he consistently makes mistakes. In the same boat as the rest of the Straw Hats. But he puts everything he has into it and he gets it done. I think one of his second big moments is his most famous moment. Or one of his most famous moments, which is his Alabasta moment when he fights against Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. Four. And Lasso, the dog, the gun that ate the dog fruit and that can shoot exploding baseballs. Oda, stop this! Sorry, that still bothers me. The funny thing is, that's not even the last weird thing of like an inanimate object eating a devil fruit and becoming sentient. Like, what the fuck? Anyways, the second moment is the obvious when he gets hit with the 4-ton bat after Miss Merry Christmas tells him about Luffy losing the crocodile for the first time and that he's dead. And Usopp doesn't, it's not even really like a crazy attack moment because that's not Usopp's character. His character isn't being super strong. Now, he does get stronger, but that's not really his thing. His thing is having this indomitable will to keep going. And that was another moment of it because he gets up and he tells his crazy speech about how Luffy will become the Pirate King. He knows he will. And you do not make fun of a man chasing his dreams. And you don't stand there and let your friends be mocked. Ever. And it's very interesting because Chopper looks up to Usopp, even though Usopp lies a lot. That was one of those real moments where it was like, bro, do not let your friends get mocked in front of you and do a nothing. You stand up, you turn that hat backwards, you put your goggles on, and you beat that motherfucker's ass. Because we don't disrespect friends out in this house, okay? That's what we don't do. We don't do that shit. Sorry, I'm getting a little tight. But throughout the course of the story, he constantly has moments like this. He even gets like I feel like Water 7 obviously is where the peak of his character is at, right? He just lost a bunch of money. He's feeling super insecure, and the only other thing he has a connection to on that boat that like correlates with himself is Mary. Because even though he's quote unquote a part of the weakling trio with Chopper and Nami, Chopper is not as weak as he likes to pretend like he is. Chopper just doesn't have confidence, and Nami, although is weak, Usopp is the reason why she's gotten stronger. On top of the fact that this woman has inherent use as a navigator for the crew. Same thing for Chopper being a doctor. Usopp, on the other hand, really only has his ability to snipe things, which does come in clutch in certain situations, but it's not like 100%, like that's not like the greatest reason compared to everybody else, right? So on top of losing all that money that was meant to use to fix the ship, he then wakes up to find out that, oh, the ship is just screwed. The ship really ain't gonna make it. And he starts self-projecting onto the ship, and he gets into it with Luffy. And Luffy makes a bad mistake by saying something he didn't really mean, but he was also angry, caught up in the moment. And Usopp didn't care. He used it as an out to justify a terrible decision he would make, which is to leave the crew because he was a burden and then he wasn't really strong enough to keep rocking with them like that. And if they were going to throw away something as weak as the Mary, something that was given to him, given to the crew by his close friend Kaya, then you might as well throw him out too. And throughout the course of Water 7 and CP9 in his lobby, he struggles a lot with it, but he still owes people and he still cares about them deeply. which is why he brings on the mask. That's our man Sniper King, or still get King Good, because it sounds cooler. But the most important thing of that whole arc is what the conclusion he gets to towards the end. And it takes him a little longer than I would have liked, but he comes to the realization. There's two lines, I think. There are two lines that I think are incredibly important. It's the line that Sanji says to Usopp right before Sanji starts fighting Jabura, which is like, listen, you do what I can't do and I'll do what you can't do. The whole idea is that the crew covers each other's weaknesses. I can't shoot as far as you can, and you can't kick a wolf's ass as good as I can. We'll cover each other, and that's what leads him into saving Robin, but his crazy sniping skills from across the goddamn gates of justice, because he's a fucking madman, right? Usopp has his own, and it comes back up towards the end of the arc where he has to recognize, listen, I made a mistake. I disrespected my captain. I need to apologize for that. I can't just keep assuming keep acting like a child and allowing myself to throw this tantrum. And granted, he had to low-key be kind of pushed into that position, but he ended up making in the long run the right choice. And he was like, Luffy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave the crew. It's not just about being a pirate. I'm sorry. And he makes a tearful apology. And of course, Luffy, who loves him to death like a brother, accepts it. And they become close, and it's such a beautiful thing. And then he finally gets his real chance to shine with the Perona fight, which is still my favorite Usopp fight. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. It's my favorite Usopp fight because it's one of the few fights he was inherently in the advantage of. But this woman kind of pulled out some fucking trickery and screwed him, and he was like, this is bull, yo. The one time I was inherently more useful than anybody else, the one time I could help and protect the crew, and I'm still getting dog walked, only to have his alter ego come save him. But it was still Usopp, regardless if it's Soka King or not. That's still Usopp. He still pretty much did that fight by himself. It took him a minute. He had to regain some confidence, but hey, he figured it out and he handled his business. And he won. And it was a beautiful moment because I very much believe he deserved it. He had grown enough to pull out a win. He didn't pull it out cleanly. But hey, that finisher was still nice, bro. Golden Pound is hard. I don't know why you call it Golden Pound when the hammer's not golden, but hey. And then, of course, obviously, them getting separated by Kuma, him getting fed on the island, and then working his ass off because Luffy just lost his brother in front of him. And he needs a stronger crew to make it through the new world, and they want to be there for him like he's been there for them. And he comes back, and he's slim. He's slim. He got some muscle on him. He got that bulk. He been hitting them weights for Hercules. You always got to put the at the end of it. If you don't put the you ain't respecting Hercules. Okay? And then throughout the course of the New World, Fisherman Island, he was on his shit. Punk Hazard, he was definitely on his shit. Okay? People don't understand. Punk Hazard to me is probably one of the best examples of why Dressrosa pisses me off so much. Punk Hazard Usopp was on his shit. Listen, I understand that him being scared is a part of his gag, right? The everyman would be freaked out in a lot of these situations. But one of the coolest things about New World Usopp is that he started being less scared of things. And he was more like, oh, this is just the shit that happens. He's starting to get used to the ridiculousness. He's still inherently frightened, but not everything puts him in a box like, oh, like he's very much grown up, and he's learned to get some confidence behind himself, right? And Punk Hazard was great because Punk Hazard, he wasn't necessarily the star of that arc, but he definitely was way less cowardly than what people remembered him being. All the way up to the point where he's sneaking into the control room towards the end of the arc and dealing with all of Caesar's soldiers and experiments, what I really should call them, and has that really cool speech about Luffy that made perfect sense for his character. Heck, he's the reason why they caught Caesar. They're in midair, and this man used his new slingshot and hit that man with Koroseki cuffs and took him out. Because that's what my man's on. That's the energy he's on. Motherfucker's about to go to Elbaf. And yes, I know I didn't mention Elbaf, but there's a lot of stuff with Usopp, right? Elbaf gives him his goal. But the point I'm making is that that man was on his shit. And then Dressrosa. And Oda said, Usopp ain't shit. The reason why Dressrosa Usopp infuriates the crap out of me is because it feels like his character inherently regressed. It regressed for no other reason than for order to give him a moment that, although makes sense, was not properly built up or set up properly because you had to change his character for the moment to work. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, so let me explain. He's with Robin and Law in the beginning of the arc, going to do this whole transfer for Caesar with Don Flamingo at the beginning of the arc, and for the most part he's okay. He's a little bit more nervous than I care for him to be, but man, I was just like, okay, this is a little weird, bro. You kind of more nervous than you've been, and it's a little jarring, honestly, because you haven't really been nervous. We just got at a Punk Hazard where you were absolutely on your shit. All right, okay, it's a little weird, but all right, fine. And then everything goes left when they find out the truth with Don Flamingo, and then Sanji has to come by and save everybody. Things go left in the arc, and I'm not gonna cover all that because that's not the important part. The part of Usopp's character that makes him absolutely infuriating is when we hit the Tontada section and we get that beautiful shot of Robin on the ground. That's a whole other issue. Listen, me and her, I think I'm a little bit older than Robin. I think I'm allowed to, hey, relax. Anyways, when we meet the Tontadas, we go right into full liar mode. And listen, I understand that Usopp is a liar. That's always been kind of his main gimmick, and it was going to go away. But the amount of lying and exaggeration was almost infuriating, especially when you start learning about the Tontadas and their history with Don Flamingo and Dressrosa in its entirety, to the point where even Frankie and Robin are actually actively angry at the situation. And for whatever reason, Usopp doesn't seem to give any type of a fuck. Usopp's only interest is to get out, and I'm a little disrespected by that, as if Usopp has no sense of compassion or empathy for these creatures who have suffered as long as they have, but for whatever reason, he's just like, man, we just gotta go, man. And I'm like, wait a minute, Usopp. You are a way better character than this, and you have shown compassion to other people before. So why all of a sudden now you just like, I didn't want to do it? Especially when his mission didn't even have to involve anything too crazy, and he was with Robin, for God's sakes. So he continues to lie. He brings up Nolan, which is a nice callback to Scott P. I appreciate it. But the point I'm making is that they got him, he's way too frightened of this whole situation considering what he's been through. And he's out here making really stupid responses to people's plight and suffering. I'm not saying he has to care as much as like some other characters, but I feel like he was being really heartless for no good reason. And then and it only took me until the moment came up to realize what was going on. So of course, Usopp's whole thing is that he's accidentally, the Tontadas very much view him very highly because Usopp's lied to make himself be put in that position. And so Usopp continues these lies all the way up until we hit Sugar, and we find out that Sugar has this ability to turn everybody into toys, and people will lose their memories of that person when they're turned into a toy, and they need to take her out, okay, but she's being guarded by Trouble, so it's not like an easy thing to do, but the Tontadas gonna go with Usopp and Robin and handle business. Cool. Then we get to the fight, or the I don't even want to call it a fight. It really isn't a fight. It's more of like a weird interaction. And essentially what happens is that Robin gets hoed and Usopp goes full coward. Now, a lot of people have made the argument, and you could make the argument, that the reason why Usopp gets full coward here is because when Robin was turned into a doll, he lost memories of Robin, which would be kind of important considering she's the focal point of CP9 and Water 7, although most of his issues in that arc have nothing to do with Robin directly. Like, the Usopp Luffy thing would have still happened, the apology would have still happened, Elbaf is still a thing without Robin. So like the core of Usopp's character doesn't change too much even with Robin wiped from his memory. There are some key points, but for the most part, his development wouldn't have been ruined enough to be like, yeah, I'm gonna have my character who's been growing and getting stronger and more confident and more about his business suddenly devolve into a sniveling coward who can't even protect Tontadas who were fighting with him. And I'm just sitting there like, is this really what we're doing? And then the moment happens. The moment you're probably thinking of where we can hear Usopp hear the voices of the Tontada scream about how strong and cool and mighty Usopp is. And it's the guilt of essentially leading these Tontada to their unintentional deaths that spurs him to come back and be like, I am Usopp and I am a liar and I lied to all of you Tontadas, but I'm going to become the true legend that you deserve right now. And they're like, yeah, Usopp is going to be the legend even though he lied to us, you piece of shit. Only for him to get dog walked off screen, mind you, and then fed the cherry or whatever the heck it was, technically the the Tabasco, the Ultra Tabasco star, and for him to freak out from the ridiculousness of the taste, which then scares Sugar, which then knocks her out, which then still gets the goal accomplished. Now, in theory, this fits in line with certain things they do with Usopp, that Usopp never goes through a situation cleanly. He always got to go through it. He has to stumble and struggle the whole way through, and then he gets the W. He still gets the W, but it's always like a messy ass W, right? And it fits that. But Usopp was a stronger and a more confident character throughout the course of the series, and even in the arc prior, until we get to this arc in this moment. And I'm sitting here in the back going, why did you make Usopp like this? And it's only this one arc, by the way, because in Zoe, he's perfectly fine. He's still kind of cowardly, but for the most part, he's fine. He's a normal character. But in this one specific arc, they make him like a dog shit coward, like a really he's just an unlikable character. He doesn't care about the Tontadas at all. He literally is trying to get the fuck out all the time. And for the most part, he was going to ditch him. It was literally him getting guilt tripped by their pains and agony that they were like, and their undying faith in him is what made him change his ways. And so I know what Oda was doing. He's building up to the moment where Usopp finally accepts that he's a liar and he's open about it, which is a cool moment. The problem is Usopp's character had already kind of progressed past that. Like, Usopp acknowledging that he's a liar and that he misled and tricked these people, that moment would have been cool if we were talking like East Blue Usopp, right? Where he accepted that he's a liar and he accepted that he misled people and how lies could hurt people, right? That would mean more to me if it happened earlier. The problem is his character had already grown from that. He used his lies to misdirect, and it was a part of his fighting style. Like, he took pride in his lies, right? That moment in development for him was long since past, and Oda thought it would have been a good moment. So what did he do? Just like how I said that moment would have made more sense in East Blue, he took Usopp all the way back, character-wise, to East Blue to get the moment off. And I'm sitting there going, do you think the moment was worth it? And I think Oda was like, it's definitely worth it. That's why we're going to do it. And everyone in the back is like, who gives a fuck? He's a stronger man now, regardless of the lies. So why even do the stupid lie? It just makes him look weak and selfish and dumb. Spoiler, he's all of those things in this arc, which is why I hate it. I hate it so much, y'all. But listen, Oda tries to sprinkle some little things in here to make it worth it, right? Well, listen, guess what? Usopp might have observation hockey. What? Usopp, he got that observation hockey. He uses it towards the end, even though it's not fully acknowledged. It's observation hockey. He has the makings of observation hockey, just like Kobe. So he got that observation hockey. So I had to watch my character devolve into a piece of shit for how long, mind you? How long did Dressrosa take? Like a couple of years. I had to watch all of that because he got observation hockey. Does he even get a cool fight in the rest of the arc? Nah. Has he really used his observation hockey since? Nah. But he might, though. He might use his observation hockey in the future. And I'm gonna be 100% real with y'all. I don't really mind that he has observation hockey. I don't mind that he was getting it. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that you bastardize the character for no reason, just to give me this stupid fucking moment that doesn't amount to anything. Does this moment even matter in his development? No, because Zoe just goes back to the way he was in Punk Hazard. In other arcs he's in Wano, he's just back to the way he was in Punk Hazard. He's still cowardly, but he's nowhere near as much of a coward as he used to be. And he can be about his shit. Ooh, Jesus Christ. And if anything, I felt like it hurt him in some aspects, because not only is his character weirdly inconsistent for that whole arc, but then I get like small moments that irk the shit out of me, like when he tells Nami it's okay to lie in this situation. It's perfectly fine to lie in these situations. When Ulti's about to smash her head in, when she says admit that your captain won't become the king of the pirates and Nami won't do it. Why is it Nami has more nuts about herself than fucking Usopp, right? I feel like his characterization was somewhat screwed, because for some reason he thought that this moment of him telling the Tontatas that he is indeed a liar was worth all of this backtracking for his character. And this kind of gets into an overarching issue with Oda and not letting jokes evolve and change. That's a whole other issue for a whole nother day. But why did my character have to get hoed just to prove this stupid fucking point? And it wasn't even worth it. You literally could have thrown observation hockey anywhere else. You could have threw it, and goddamn, you could have threw it anywhere else, and it would have worked. Because he doesn't even use observation hockey. He only used observation hockey like once in this arc, and that moment would have still worked regardless of the Tontata thing. But looking at Usopp's evolution in fights, to me, it would have made more sense for this fight to not be as clean as win as I wanted it to be, but a cleaner win than his Perona fight. That was his progression. His culmination would have been him winning a fight outright with no issues whatsoever. He would have had some assistance from the Tontata here, but it would have been way cooler. And also trouble would have been dealt with by Usopp instead of trouble becoming a consistent annoyance throughout the Law, Luffy, and Doflamingo fight. Like, and that's not even talking about the fact that Doflamingo's crew is trash. They are all trash. You didn't even have main Straw Hats beat the majority of them because they're trash. Doflamingo was a character that was hyped up for years. I think we're going on decades. Why is his crew so trash? I don't like what they did to Usopp. I don't like the misunderstanding of Usopp's character from the creator of the character. Why do you not know how Usopp works as a character? It's so infuriating, bro. And then you put him in this dog shit arc that has a bunch of problems in it that has nothing to do with Usopp. Usopp is arguably one of the least of my problems in this arc. And I still hate the way he was portrayed. So guess what? The Usopp that weirdly says shit that he's like still afraid and cowardly because Oda doesn't know how to evolve his fucking jokes. Oh God. I need another cookie. Oh God, no. Overall, I still like Usopp a lot, right? I think his overall development is good. I even like the fact that he's getting observation hockey, right? But just know that for a moment in time, a couple years to be exact, Usopp was such an infuriating character. And all for a plot line that I just genuinely believe was not worth the effort or time. This has been your boy, the Insane Game Freak. Life is indeed a game. I indeed play to win. And I will catch you guys later. Peace. Oh. One Piece. Oh. Going on. Golly!